So I've got my hands on one of the new 2016 MacBook units, the ones released towards the end of April 2016. I'm a big fan of the previous edition. I've used it as effectively as my meeting and travel buddy for the most part, essentially as a more powerful and capable iPad. So the keyboard and the access to native apps, for example, were really the key differences for me. I thought it would be useful to have a look at the performance differences between the new units and the 2015. There was a lot of noise around about how underpowered the 2015 units were. I don't necessarily agree. I think it comes down to what you intend using the units for. So for me, for meetings, running office apps, email, and consuming media, so watching movies or whatever, it's great. I effectively used it like a super iPad. Of course, if you want to start doing things like running Windows 10 in parallels or, doing some movie editing, then perhaps it's not really the right unit for you. But I think things may have changed with the new 2016 unit. So let's have a look at the performance and I'll take you through the key differences. So this unit, like I say, is a slightly higher spec one. It's a 1.2 gigahertz Core M5 unit. It's a Skylake chip with 8 gig RAM. It's also got the better graphics in there, and also if we look at the storage, you'll see that it's got a half a terabyte of 512 gig SSD in it. So let's have a look at some of the performance. So the first thing that people have been talking about is the fact that the storage is a lot quicker at this on this model. So let's perhaps have a look at that. We'll look at the disk speed test. There we go. Now, one thing I'd just like to point out, not only am I recording in QuickTime, which tends to have an impact on the drive performance, but I've also now encrypted this drive. So the figures we'll see in there will be an impact from that encryption and from the fact that we're recording with QuickTime. So what we can do is have a look at one of the stats that I ran earlier, and you can see that the drive is actually very fast. We're getting really good performance. It's very similar to my Retina MacBook Pro, for example, and it certainly looks better when you compare it to my 2015 unit, which is this one. So on the left we have the 2016, and on the right we have the 2015 unit. So you can see the write speeds are certainly significantly better, and also the read speeds are better as well. So let's also have a look at the Geekbench stats. So this one here is the 2016 and this one there is the 2015. So let's look at them side to side. So again, you can see that the performance in the Geek tool, or kind of the actual performance stats, are better. The only thing I'd like to point out is when we are literally not comparing apples to apples, this unit is the higher spec model from the 2016 range. The one I'm comparing it to is the entry level model from the 2015. So you'd expect that to be a higher performance anyway. One thing that is particularly interesting is if we look at this file here. Okay, so this one was a summary of all of the units that I had available to me at the time. So if we look at it, you'll see that there's an iPad Air in there. There's the 2015 MacBook. There's my 15-inch i7 MacBook Pro, and there's also my 5K iMac as well. And so you can see how it compares in there. So the 2015 MacBook was not that far off the performance of an iPad Air, whereas you can see the 2016 one, perhaps a significant jump from there. So let's have a look at let's get away from kind of benchmarks and actually have a look at the real world performance of this, and we'll just see what it's like. So how do you measure the real world performance of these machines? Well, it's quite hard to demonstrate. I guess the only way to really show you is just kind of run some apps and see what it looks like. So the most common ones I use are probably Word and Excel. So let's fire those up. This is a freshly booted machine, so nothing should be cached. There's Word, there's Excel, and again, I'll just point out I am currently recording the screen in QuickTime, and it does have an effect on the performance. So we've got Word and Excel running, perhaps maybe PowerPoint as well. So how does it compare to the 2015 one? Well, it's quite difficult to quantify, but the point I would make is it's a lot more fluid, and it certainly doesn't feel as clumsy as the 2015 unit. The 2015 can get a bit bogged down. If you start Word and then you try and start Excel and then fire up PowerPoint, it can get a little get a little wrapped up, and it can take a little while for it to get back to the point that it's usable. So far, I've not experienced that on this unit. Now, the other thing where it becomes interesting is when we start to look at virtualization, because I mentioned earlier that I avoided running Windows 10 or avoided using virtual machines on the 2015 unit, and probably reasonably so. The only time I ever did fire up Windows 10 was when I had to get access to something that I couldn't do in OS 10. So it would be getting access to Visio or perhaps my Exchange archives. My perception is that that's all changed with this edition. So let's fire it up and I'll show you what I mean. So let's fire up my Windows machine in Parallels. I think this is Parallels 11. Yes, it is. So we'll fire up my Windows. This is my main work machine. And there we go. I'm pretty sure it's a pin login there. There we go. Let's get the pin in. We'll get logged into the desktop. So I think you'll agree. It's actually very, very snappy. Certainly compared to the 2015 units. I did a performance comparison of the 2015. That's still on the website. So if you want to go have a look at that and just see how it compares. And there we are. We're at the desktop. Now, I'm not going to pretend that this is a fast, capable virtualization machine because that would be ridiculous. But what I will say is the virtual machine on this platform is usable, and I would quite happily use this. Whereas I think in the 2015 one, it struggled to the point that I would not enjoy having to fire up Windows 10 and having to use Visio. So if we have a look at the resources that are allocated to this machine, let's have a look. So I've got all 4 cores allocated to it currently. I wouldn't normally run it like that. There's 3 gig of RAM allocated. Yeah, so let's have a look. Oh, it's 4 gig apparently. So let's have a look at the general performance of the Windows machine. So again, it's quite hard to quantify general operational performance. So let's fire up things like Word and Excel as well. So the key difference for me is it has actually made Windows in a virtual machine usable, much like it is on my Retina 15. So I'm quite pleased about that, and it has certainly added a new area of making these machines capable for me. So let's get rid of those. The other thing that's kind of useful is drive speed has speeded up things like pausing machines. So for example, if I suspend this machine, there we go, and it's done. Again, that's perfectly acceptable to me. And what we'll do is we'll fire it up again, resume it, and there we go, we're back working again. So, of course, it doesn't compare to my Retina 15-inch at all, but for a small package that will run for 9, 10 hours that I don't know is in my backpack and I can carry around and effectively use as a very powerful and a very capable iPad. I'm pleased with it, and I'm certainly pleased with the performance increase. So let's get rid of this machine. We'll just shut this down and see what that looks like. I think, if anything, this the performance of the 2016 unit is kind of what I'd hoped the 2015 unit was going to be. I thought I was going to have effectively a small compact unit, perhaps not far off the performance of a MacBook Air or something like that. Didn't really get that with the 2015. It did feel like a bit of a compromise as a laptop, which gets back to my point that you need to have a good use case for this because, I was looking for something that was effectively a fancy or perhaps more powerful iPad rather than a laptop because I have lots of kit that can fulfill the laptop space. And I think what I've got with this is what I was looking for with the 2015 unit. So far, I have to say I'm quite pleased with it. So yeah, if you're interested in the 2016 unit, I hope that kind of very quick and very brief run through has helped with your choice. I'll update. I mean, I'm going to be using this now as my probably my main travel and meeting machine. So for all that stuff where I don't need the power of an i7 in front of me. So what I'll do is I'll update this once I've got a bit more information for you.